As we come back, let us remind you that at the Post Live, Serling on Saratoga is coming to you live from the Party Glass Pub in downtown Saratoga, and is presented by Naira. Wager on Naira.com, Naira's new state-of-the-art wagering interface. Also want to remind people once again, Nashville comes to races. That'll be next Thursday. A lot of good stuff going on with that. We'll talk about that later, but I'm very excited to have my next guest here. Jerry Crawford, president of Donegal Racing. Much more than that, Jerry, thanks a lot for joining us up here.
Thank you. How can you not? Thank you. How can you not love the parting glass when they just, in honor of your silks from racing, they bring in yellow and green tablecloths? I'm very touched, actually.
They said, actually, it's all about Donegal tonight. They're very, very quick in thinking. You might be the only guy here that doesn't want American Pharoah to show up next week.
Bring him on.
You ready to beat him?
Bring him on. It's great for horse racing. He has re-energized our sport. And if you're not ready to take on the best, then you don't deserve to be the best. Keen Ice is ready.
I agree. Now, of course, Donegal Stables, Keen Ice, you're probably familiar with. And Keen Ice has had an eventful year because he had maybe the worst trip of anybody in the Derby, where he was just completely blocked and never had a chance to run.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating if you get a chance to spend any time with American Pharoah and Keen Ice in proximity, as I did in the paddock at the Haskell. And I've been saying since that American Pharoah reminds you of the most athletic 6-foot, 10-inch NBA forward you've ever seen. And Keen Ice looks like the baddest NFL linebacker you've ever seen. Very, very different creatures, and so far the forward's done okay.
He's done okay, but Keen Ice has done well also because he was unlucky in the Derby. I mean, I don't think we're saying he would have won, but he would have been a lot closer if he had been allowed to find room in the stretch, as he was totally blocked. And then the Belmont, he wasn't going to win, but I think he should have been second there. I thought Ken kind of gave up on him a little bit.
Well, he floated a little wide coming out of the third turn, but I thought, you know, he's not an easy horse to ride. The thing about big fullback horses is you can't interrupt their momentum. Once they get rolling, you've got to let them roll. I think, frankly, that American Pharoah has quite a bit more agility than our horse does. But once our horse gets going, he's as good as anybody.
No, he's been terrific, and he made a great run at the Haskell. I mean, he wasn't going to beat American Pharoah. No. American Pharoah was geared down, but he was ran very well to be second, and he looked strong. And I have to think this makes you excited to take a chance at a mile and a quarter, and while it would be nice to win the Travers, I think you have to kind of want to take a shot at American Pharoah.
Absolutely. You know, we have partners who feel both ways about this. There's no doubt about it. By the way, Chris K., can we change our horse's name before the Travers? I was thinking Onion sounded good.
I think Baffert would feel if we referred to him as Onion during the week.
Yeah, well, we got trouble with him already. I don't want him, you know.
Really?
I want him to feel warm and.
You know, that's. By the way, Bob's posturing about Saratoga. Bob's had enormous success at Saratoga. I don't know what he's talking about. You think the guy never won a big race there? He won the Travers, he won the Alabama. I think he's won the Test. I think he's won a number of our big races.
Yeah, of course he has. He's won every big race.
Right.
Not just yours here at Saratoga.
Right. Suddenly he never really wins. And you know, you said something interesting when we were talking at the draw for the Belmont Stakes about how important you felt for a horse like American Pharoah. If he's going to make his place in history, he should be tested when he runs.
Yeah, you know, going into the Belmont, the whole country, the whole sport, pulling for American Pharoah. I get that absolutely. But I think that in order for a Triple Crown is a very special thing. And when somebody wins a Triple Crown, people need to realize that the horse beat the best available. This is a great crop of 3-year-olds this year, one of the strongest I've seen. And our job was to go and validate American Pharoah's success if he won that race. And I think we all contributed to that.
I agree very much. You know, it's interesting with these horses because leading up to the Kentucky Derby, everybody, including myself, we were all talking about how good these 3-year-olds were.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people were having and hawing and saying, they weren't that good. I think what American Pharoah has done, and believe me, I have not been his biggest fan at times, and I was wrong about him and underappreciated him. But I think what he's done is made very good horses look ordinary.
That's a very good point. You know, he has, I mean, to his credit, he's made his own luck. He's gotten out on the front end. He's been largely uncontested on the front end until Competitive Edge went with him for 3/4, 7/8 of a mile.
Snapped him in half.
And then he took off, right. But that was really the first time he'd ever been joined on the front end. So he's He's had kind of a dream scenario up to now. By the way, if any of you have a horse that can run a 1:08 and change 6 furlongs, come sell them to me before we leave tonight, because we'd love to enter him in the Travers.
Let me ask you a question that we talked about last week. If American Pharoah had run in the Whitney, how do you think he would have done? Because that's the kind of scenario that would have presented the biggest obstacle to him, a very talented speed horse and obviously talented closers behind him.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to
it's a good question, right? I mean,
it's a tough question, not unlike the Pacific Classic, right?
Certainly speed in there.
Yeah, another alternative. I don't think you can say American Pharoah isn't going to win any race he's in the rest of this year.
True.
Until you beat him. And we're excited to have the chance. Dale Romans, our trainer of Keen Ice, has been saying lately that when you look at the posters in the NBA and somebody's dunking, well, that's us that they're dunking against, right? And, you know, we're not dunking, but we're in the picture. so
Dale likes to be in the picture.
We like to be in the picture. That's right.
So let's talk about you. You have been involved in ownership and horse racing for a long time before you started Donegal. Is that true?
That's true. In fact, Fred and Ruth Kammeyer are here tonight. We got involved in owning horses back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and then I did some things back and forth, a little breeding, bred Finnegan's Wake, in a very tiny breeding operation, and we bred Puka.
Really?
Yeah, but for the most part, the intensity or the real focus on racing came about because my friends and I were trying to figure out, why do we keep losing when we bet on the Kentucky Derby? Why do these long shots win, although not the last couple of years, but historically, why do they win and why do we not see? And so I started putting some data together genetically to see what similarities horses had who hit the board in the Triple Crown. And then in 2008, I decided, okay, I'm going to try and buy a horse that fits this formula we've come up with for betting purposes and see what happens. And I went to the 2008 sale down in Kentucky, and you all remember what happened in the stock market in September of 2008. And as a result, the first thing people stopped doing is buying horses. Having gone down to buy one, I came home owning 8. So then I was deep into sort of what I thought of as an alimony prevention program. I mean, how exactly do I explain this to Linda that I bought 8 horses? But fortunately, I had some good friends who had always said, let's do some horses together. Some of them are here tonight. And they pitched right in, and Patio Prado was in that first bunch. He finished 3rd in the Kentucky Derby. He's standing at stud now down in Kentucky, and off we went.
He's the worst speed I ever took. When
I
he
know,
lost his
me
first
too.
race in the turf here at Saratoga, cost me a Ford. Miguel Maina rode him, and then he won the Secretariat. He was a tremendous horse, who, while he finished 3rd in the Derby, he really was obviously a very, very good grass horse.
Yeah, well, we'll have to compare sometime how much we each lost.
Cost me to pick 4. I think would have paid about $20,000. It was an awful, awful beat with him, and he went and did so well. And then right after him, you got Dullahan.
2 years later, we paid $250,000 for an even the score, and people, by far the most anybody had paid for an even the score, and people were laughing out loud at the sale when I paid that much money for an even the score. But I haven't seen them lately, those people.
Do you believe, it's funny because I talk about this, a friend of mine who buys horses, buying horses from sires, you know, if they're sort of sires that are not sexy and people don't buy it often, but other people, because don't forget, you paid $250, somebody bid $240.
Yeah.
So you weren't the only jerk who wanted to buy them.
That's
and
true.
I think sometimes maybe those are the horses that are more interesting. It's counterintuitive.
You know, I'll tell you a little secret, at least as far as Donegal racing
Nobody
is
here
concerned.
will tell anybody.
Ladies, it's not about the sires. It's about the girls. It's a broodmare-dominated business. And if you give me, here's what's happened. You have to be so good now to make it as a sire in this country. You have to be so good that you're already up here, and there's this incredible compression between the most expensive sire and the least expensive sire. Just give me any of them within reason, at least one that can produce stamina, and then let me pick a broodmare, and I'll go with the broodmare every time. And look strongly at the broodmare sire and the grand broodmare sire. So Penny Tweedy came, we had a party the night before the Kentucky Derby when Dullahan finished 3rd, and she came and she said, your horse reminds me of my Big Red. And then she spoke and she said, Jerry figured out what I figured out 30 years ago is all about the girls.
Well, it is true. I think people do. You know, they tend to look at the sires and they get sexy, and a lot of the people who stand them when they want to buy the horses, that they want to support their stallions, and they sometimes miss what may be good dams. Finnegan's Wake, you bred Finnegan's Wake.
I did, and there's a funny story about it. The people at Hidden Brook, where we bred him, called when Finnegan's Wake was born. He was actually 2 days old, and they said, I don't know if you're going to want to keep this one. He's never going to be much. He was born pretty crooked, and he grew out a little of that, but you know what? You can't tell when you look at, try and evaluate the conformation of a newborn colt is what they've got right here, and he had plenty.
And he's just gotten better and better with age, and he's had his best, last 6 months or year that he ever had.
Yeah, indeed. We sent him to California and a change of scenery and to Peter Miller, and it just really was agreeable with him. He's running this Saturday at Del Mar in a Grade 2. Donegal has a huge weekend of racing. We've got, here at Saratoga, we have a 2-year-old starting on Saturday, Patrick's Day. Then we have I Wish You Well running in a good race at Monmouth Park, and then we have Finnegan's Wake running in the Grade 2 Del Mar Handicap. That's on Saturday, and then on Sunday we have another 2-year-old, Shut the Box, making its first start out at Del Mar.
You're going to Del Mar, or are you staying with us?
Staying here, right, Chris?
Why would anybody leave Saratoga?
I know what to say about this question.
You got to stay there. You coming to the draw? We got the draw Tuesday night for the Belmont. You've been invited. The Travers. You've been invited, right?
I'll be here.
Good. I want you to be there. I'm going to need you to be there. So, okay, we're going to talk about other stuff. Politics.
Okay.
Iowa. You're very involved in politics in Iowa. Can you talk about it a little bit? I guess you started Donegal. Is that true? Right after Hillary lost the Iowa caucuses in 2008. Is that true?
Yes.
So this was your way to forget about politics?
Fortunately, Hillary's having a great couple of weeks right now, so I think it's all okay.
Well, are you sure it's not opposite? Maybe how Hillary does well, it's not good. I hope that's not the way it works out. So you're very friendly and close to the Clintons. Is that true?
Yeah. President Clinton came with us to the Belmont Stakes. Chris was great about making arrangements to make that possible. He's a huge horse racing fan, and because he was the governor of Arkansas, because of his the fact that his mother, Virginia Kelly,
she used to come here.
She loved horse racing as much as anybody in this room, I promise you. And so he sort of grew up, with it. And he was, on Belmont Day, he had a group of young people, teenagers, early 20s around him, and none of them could fathom how he knew so much about horse racing. They just didn't see him that way.
I remember he came, I think, to Funny Sides, Belmont.
Yeah.
And there had been an article about Ernie Dahlman, who's a big player, in the Times Magazine section. I remember apparently he had said to somebody he wanted to meet Ernie. So he read about that. Now, are you going to bring him for the Travers?
I've extended an invitation. They're going to still be on vacation, unfortunately, but they love it here, and I expect that they'll be here soon.
That would be great if you could get. So he won't be on the radio show, and he won't be coming to the Travers. So are you involved in Hillary's campaign in Iowa right now?
I am. But, you bring up politics. See, we were doing so well, now half the people just decided they don't like me.
They want to hear about politics. They don't care. They want to know what a big mocker you are.
Yeah.
So you've come to Saratoga basically to escape Iowa, is what you're saying. To escape your life there.
I told Hillary that I was coming here, and she said, I think you're paying too much attention to your four-legged racers and not enough attention to your two-legged racer.
So, in other words, you're coming here to make sure she appreciates the job you do.
But I did go home this week and put in my time, so.
Really? Well, but it's better to be in Saratoga, right?
Absolutely.
And so, you're in Saratoga. So, when did you first come to Saratoga?
Oh, gosh. Close to 20 years ago.
Really? Now, were you, because you bet as well.
Been known to put a bob or two
down. Let me
ask
you, the two groups that contribute to the game are owners and bettors. Mm-hmm. And do you think of them in similar ways because they're both risking their money and in the game?
Well, I think I try and share with partners my view that just because you own a horse doesn't mean it's going to run any faster. So probably owners overbet their own horses, to say the least. But that's part of the fun of it, to back horses. It takes. You all know this. It takes so much good fortune and hard work to get a horse from their yearling year to running at a place like Saratoga. I mean, the reason winning here is so special is because it's so incredibly hard to do. And so it all fits together.
Yeah,
the wagering and the owning.
It's hard. I think I can't pick any winners, so I can appreciate all of that.
That's not true. That's not true. You're having one of those little downward
Right. I picked the perfect time to have a downward thing when everybody's watching. That's always the best time to do it. And I keep saying it's going to get better, but I'm running out of days. I've only got 16 days left. I feel as though, there's such a similarity. And it's interesting because, I know a lot of owners like you, and a lot of them came to ownership from betting horses before they owned.
And that was true for myself as well. My grandfather, I think this is the curse of the Irish. My grandfather loved horses, but there's certainly no money to be betting on horses. We didn't go to the races, but we'd go watch them work out in the morning sometimes. And he loved every kind of horse, whether it was a rodeo horse or a quarter horse or a pulling horse. We had a lot of those in Iowa. And so I just grew up loving the breed. And then when I discovered that there was gambling, beer, and a few girls around the edges.
Girls, especially in Saratoga, we got girls
at the horse races. Yeah, I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it kind of works. It's a fun place to be, and you spend most of your summer in Saratoga every year.
I'm certainly here a majority of the meet. I've been here all but I think 3 days so far this year.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming and joining us.
And don't have any plan to leave.
Why would you leave? You're going to stay through the end.
Exactly.
And you got Keen Ice on Saturday.
Exactly.
So what do you think?
Here's what I think. Graveyard of Champions. Have you ever heard that phrase?
I have. Saratoga's a graveyard of bad handicappers, by the way, in case you're interested.
Yeah.
Proof right here.
Look, let me just be very blunt about this. People are starting to think of Keen Ice as the horse. If American Pharoah doesn't, Keen Ice will. I think upstart Texas Red Frosted, Keen Ice, put them all in a shaker, pour them out. I mean, I don't see a lot of separation between those four. None of those four would surprise me as second to Pharoah or first. The other horses, it's a little more of a leap of faith, probably.
I'm dying to see Texas Red get a fair chance against him. Because while American Pharoah beat him fairly easily in the Chandelier, American Pharoah really was controlling the race in front. And I think Texas Red is a very, very good horse. And I love that they had an issue and they didn't rush him to the Triple Crown. It's paying off for them.
It really is. They took care of the horse. If you take care of the horse first, everything else takes care of itself. That's one thing. It does raise an issue for us because Kent DeSormo has been riding for us. And now, of course, he's going to ride for his brother on Texas Red. And so who do we end up with? That's right, Javier Castellano. Not exactly a consolation prize, right?
Not bad. Yeah. There's a lot of good riders in Saratoga, a lot of good owners as well. Jerry Crawford, thanks so much for joining us here in At the Post. Thanks a lot, Jerry. Stay with us. We come right back. At the Post Live is brought to you by Timeform US. Visit timeformus.com, the site for the modern horse player.